to this edition of the Eric Miscoll Show. I'm Eric Miscoll with EMS Now, and thanks for listening in today. Our topic today that we want to discuss is the EMS market in North America. And to help us with that, we've invited two guests, both with North American-based EMS companies, to kind of share their insights and their thoughts on some of the trends and what's happening. So joining us today, we have Nicole Russo, who's the CEO of Microboard, and Larry Veiga, who's a Vice President of Business Development with Spartronics. Both of them are first-time guests on our show, so thank you both for taking the time and joining us today. We look forward to the discussion. As always, I'd like to give you both an opportunity to introduce yourselves and your companies for the benefit of the audience. And Nicole, why don't I begin with you and turn the mic over to you and let you introduce yourself and Microboard a bit.
Sure. Thank you, Eric and Phil, for the opportunity to present Microboard and State of the Union in the EMS industry today. And Larry, great to partner with you on this panel. So Microboard Processing here in Seymour, Connecticut, just outside of New Haven, has been in business for 40 years, privately owned. We are serving medical, defense, industrial, and telecom sectors. Very niche based in high complexity technology, integration, and test services. We have a suite of equipment that is mostly new within the last 24 to 48 months, and a who's list of software that drives the backbone of how we deliver a quality product to about 20 customers around the world each day. 130 employees here at one site. Our mission here at Microboard is to deliver the most leading edge technology while also helping those least fortunate in the world. So we made a commitment 40 years ago at the end of each year to take profit that was left in the business and help people around the world that make less than $1 a day. And we have held true to that for 40 years as a family.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It really is. Well, thank you and welcome. Larry, what would you like to tell us?
Hi there, I'm Larry Veiga. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for Spartronics. We are a global EMS company located in, we have 9 locations globally, including Mexico and Vietnam. We have over 1,500 employees. We too are a niche EMS supplier. We consider ourselves in high reliability solutions, including aerospace and defense, medical, and I would say controls and industrial products that, the failure is not an option. We have the appropriate certificates and registrations that you would think that would be needed within those categories. We are a very high mix regulated business. Quality is number one, but also the ability to do a lot of different products and integrate them into a full system is one of our offerings. And I would say our biggest goal is really speed to revenue for our customers. Our customers are in very competitive markets. They need the flexibility to get to market quickly with their technology, and we provide that for them.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So there's a lot that we can talk about, but I figured we tackled the big industry issue right off, right? Which is all the material supply chain challenges that we've all been suffering. Well, the industry's been suffering through for the last couple of years. So I just want to kind of throw that out, how are those challenges impacting your business and how are you handling those? How are you managing through those? And Nicole, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So obviously, I think we all know where we stand in today's environment. I'm convinced that the dictionary should have adding the word "the golden screw" to it, which is that one part we all need to ship the tens of millions of dollars of revenue we have each month. And so it is what it is. I think companies' nimbleness to partner with their customers on go-forward strategies is just critical right now. The ability to understand backlog for not the next 6 or 12 months, but for the next 2 to 4 years is critical. to understand what that pricing pressure is going to continue to be, as you know, all through the supply chain. There's capacity constraints. And so that is something we're concentrating on very hard here. At the beginning of COVID, we pulled all of our inventory in for what essentially ended up being a one-time turn, and we've continued to do that. There's a couple advantages. We're liquidity rich, but we've also insulated our customers from significant price increases that have subsequently been occurring. So we'll continue to challenge and do that model. We're kind of getting into the capital structures of our customers and helping them a bit. We'll continue to automate. We will double down on our inventory positions and also help customers in redesigns as we see components for obsolescence or not recommended for new design. So a couple of the things we're working on.
Excellent. Larry, what's happening at Spartronics?
A couple things. We are still looking for the golden screw at the end of the day, but over the 18 months, we've changed our reporting structure to our customers. Our customers are looking for more transparency. They want up to the minute status on decommits and alternatives that are available in products. And we've had to think a little bit different and report a lot different, and obviously that takes more resources, but we've committed that to our customers. We've also onboarded and invested in additional software that automates our process of looking for material, not creating false requirements. I think one of the fears that most people have is, especially in the broker market, is going out and looking at every broker for material where needed and then creating a false demand or increased demand for material. So you have to control that. And we've done that working closely with our customers on that. And we've also hopped over our distribution arms to a degree where we're going straight to the OEMs where needed. More and more with arm in arm with the customer. Customer is the voice, and we've partnered with them and working hard to leverage, both our spend and also their need with the manufacturers has been really important. So, I think those are the initial things that we've invested in what we see. It's a very strange market. If you look at some of the behaviors that have gone on, they're unprecedented. You have decommits, and to get back in line, you have to pay an expedite, and you pay the expedite whether it happens or not. And these are hard discussions to have with customers and try to explain them. And so that partnership of bringing the customer into part of that solution on supply chain has helped quite a bit, because now they understand the market. They're willing to give a little bit more of the forecast demand and work closely with us and looking at alternatives if need be.
I think that customer attention question is really interesting. And two of the key impacts that I've noticed from this whole supply chain disruption is, as Nicole said, there's a big cash requirement. So if liquidity is good, then you're in a good position to deal with that. If it's not, it's a big challenge. But also, the EMS industry has talked for years about these partnerships with OEMs and these really close customers. This has really put a strain on those relationships. There's a lot of pressure there. Has it been reasonably easy to retain those relationships that started as good relationships, or has it put pressure on certain relationships and made them a bit more adversarial and a little bit more rocky?
You're mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I think it's actually I've strengthened the relationship, by having more transparency both ways. I think it's improved the relationship. It has forced this to not be such a transactional business. It's gone back to the basics that I've always believed, that we are a service. We don't own any IP or product. So we're a service to our customers, and that requires face-to-face interaction. And the more you can do that, the better. And I think as the customer sees us in action, speaking on their behalf, it gives them a comfort that we are doing the right things, and that, we are investing in the right tools and people to make sure that we at least try to mitigate the risk as much as we can. And that's our goal. And that's number one.
And
Yeah,
Nicole, do you concur with that?
I do. I think Larry makes a great point on the transparent relationships that are often overlooked as a contract manufacturer. And it's one of the things we pride ourselves here on by keeping our customer list a little bit smaller and more directed. And I think there's another piece in there which is critical, which is what are those strategies that we're going to employ 24 to 48 months from now, when part of this system is never going to return to normal. So we've started exploring a lot of those discussions, again, transparently. What are the customers willing to do? What are they willing to do for material lean-in bombs that we're willing to, lean into? They're willing to lean into, and how do we share some of that risk more than what's traditionally been seen? So I think it's a great point on it's becoming less of a transactional industry.
Yeah, and more of a partnership with that transparency. I talked to a few people kind of, I don't know, I guess a couple of years ago about this idea of the glass factory where everything's visible inside. And the discussion that more people are having now is the idea of this glass pipeline where actually supply chain visibility kind of from your suppliers all the way through you and to the customers is even more important, and the digitization of that. And I think that's something we'll see develop in the next 24 to 48 months, because I don't know, as you say, it's not all going to go away, and there will be other disruptions, and you need to design your business model for disruption, and your customers need to design their product for disruption. I think we're seeing a bit of a realization of that, and a return to where we were 3 or 4 years ago is perhaps not realistic. Do you feel that there's a change in the way people are thinking at both ends of the supply chain?
I think so. I think without a doubt, there's, it's to your point, it's not going to go away. And, I have to say that customers are quickly, they're creating their lists. They're being reminded who's helping, who isn't helping. That's gonna, it's a short-lived gain for a lot of companies. And, that way of doing business right now, 3 or 4 years ago, will change, to Nicole's point, will change the way we do business going forward. And the partnerships will change, whether it's with distribution or directly with the OEM. People are taking notes, and some of this will pass, some of this won't, but at some point, people have, they'll have a long memory of what we've gone through. And again, I kind of revert back to the point of, I think the EMS and the EMS companies and the customers are partnering. There's some stress, without a doubt. There is a lot of stress. There's a lot of stress on resources. There's competitors of ours, and I'm sure our own customers that are stressed to the point where they do look for, they want that better solution, but they're afraid to even make a move or make a decision for the sheer fact that they get out of line. Nobody wants to get out of line for material. And it's really important that you have that continuity of supply. Our customers, being very transparent about it, in most cases, they want to see the PO. They want to know that, if I give you 24 months, do you have that PO out there? And that's kind of the environment it's come down to.
Yeah, I think there's another dynamic that we're seeing as well, or hearing about, which is consolidation of tier 3 and 4 EMS companies, because unfortunately they're just not going to survive with the liquidity needs, how they need to position. So those customers on the other end that are appreciating the strength of a Microboard and a Spartronics are also at the same time, I think, really looking at consolidation that's already going on in some of the tier 2s, and the opportunities for us to offer these forward-thinking services, is, to Larry's point, they're going to keep us on their list as that consolidation happens. And I think it opens up really good opportunities for us, those EMS companies that are very strong in these strategies.
Yeah, and I think it defines you a little as a business, doesn't it? The way you deal with a crisis defines you more than the way you deal with business in kind of everyday life.
Yeah. a lot has been said, so I want to kind of get into a couple of the issues here. And Larry, you made mention about the distribution and that you're going, in some ways, going over distribution, going with your customers directly to the buyer. So I wanted to kind of check on that relationship, kind of I'm assuming both EMS companies, and especially companies your size, rely on distribution quite a bit. So how do you assess how they have been working these past few years, and how can that be improved on their end?
Well, distribution over the past few years has changed and evolved to a point of it's tough to get long-term stocking with a lot of distributors. It almost seems like a pass-through in some means. And so, if you look at the OEMs that are looking at who am I designing in, and that manufacturer is working through a distributor, they actually have the transparency. They follow the material from factory through the distribution to the user, and they actually see it go out the back door. That transparency has now come to us. We're arm in arm, so we're directed to use a distributor. We work arm in arm with them. You can fight it all you want, but that is the model that some of the manufacturers have created, and we respect that. So we created tight relationships with those distributors. They're involved. They're heavily involved. If we're going straight to a Xilinx or someone like that, they're the distributors side by side with us. But we're requesting the meeting directly with that company, and I think they see us and they see us with the customer, and they see us united with the customer. Again, I'm getting back to that, an EMS company was considered a pass-through to a degree because the part is, spec'd in at, the OEM side. So now they see us together, and, we have a lot of customers that said, this is my partner, this is my EMS partner, and we want our part. and they're heated discussions. I'm in business development, half my time is spent with supply chain in working with our customers and engaging these meetings. And we've seen benefits out of it. And the benefits are not just getting parts that are needed for the time, but also looking forward and making sure we have continuity of supply, in 2022, 2023, and even looking at 2024, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Do you think those distributors are as ready to change and as ready to adapt the supply chain and business model and provide that kind of glass pipeline and digitally enabled supply chain that you want?
It's mixed. It's very mixed. And the reason why I say that is you have a lot of distributors that say they are a global supplier. And through this situation, we found out they're not as global. They don't have the tools that show materials, that they have material, in Asia, let's say, through the same distributor as they do in the United States. So that's kind of shown us that we now have to divide and conquer. So our sites, let's say in Vietnam, will go look at the same distribution market in Asia. And sometimes we've had some, great luck of finding material. But what it has shown to us is that they're not as connected as people think. And so it's made us work a little bit different. And so it's exposing some of the weaknesses that distribution has right now. And I think people are thinking twice of, how do I approach that now?
Yeah, and I think one of the points I'll add is, distribution being obviously a partner more than just transactional, in the ability to really have playbooks to run with them. Because in this environment, we're all operating transactionally, but there's a limit as to how much we can do. So I think for us, based on us getting very intimate with each of our distributors on our customer needs, we can run set playbooks on material strategies that bring the level of anxiety and some of the fatigue we've been feeling for the last 18 months, to essentially a new normal. And a little different because we're only in the US, but we recognize obviously parts are coming from around the globe. So we're able to deploy distribution partnerships, I would say, in a more of a playbook manner. That's really helped us.
Okay. The other issue I wanted to check in on, and Nicole, you had kind of mentioned it, is the change, the competitive landscape and some of the consolidation happening lower down. The other thing I'm noticing is that you see, especially European EMS starting to do acquisitions in North America now, right? And so that they're returning the favor that we launched on them, a few decades ago, I guess. And so I'm wondering, how are you seeing that, other than the consolidation and maybe potentially some business failures on some domestic ones here? How do you view the changing environment here for the competitive landscape of EMS in North America?
Yeah, so I can answer from our customers' perspective here of considerable consolidation over the last 3 to 4 years, even kind of just right before COVID, of some EMS companies that have lost some designations that as a small business or a woman-owned business that frankly have helped us, and so that I think will obviously continue, as I mentioned before earlier, in the tier 3 and tier 4s more so in the future. And create an opportunity for companies like ours. I think Larry can obviously speak more to the global side of what he's seeing.
Mm-hmm. You're muted.
Thanks, Nicole. I think that what we've seen is on the consolidation side of the business is that, during these consolidations, then this situation happened with supply chain. And, you're trying to do an integration and you're trying to deal with the supply chain. And it's created some gaps, with some of our larger competitors, which is, to Nicole's word, is, opportunities for us. And I think that that's been very, very good on our side. I think, also from our customers' perspective is, there are some, smaller businesses that got exposed, quite honestly. Nicole's company is healthy, everything's good there. When you have the smaller businesses that had no supply chain strategy, they had nothing in place, all of a sudden, not only did the customer have to deal with, managing now all the material because their supplier can't do it. And in a lot of cases, they had to buy the material at a much higher cost because the continuity wasn't ordered there, the commit wasn't there. So all these gaps got exposed. And so, with some of these smaller companies, it made people think twice, so who am I doing business? And I think you're seeing right now a reshifting, or, people are right sizing their business. A company that says, look, I've been doing business with a tier 1 painfully for 2 years. I finally realized I belong in tier 2 or tier 3, and people, and vice versa. It goes both ways. And I'm seeing a lot of shifting. I'm seeing a lot of companies reanalyze that they want to be the bigger fish in the pond. They want to have that more intimate relationship, so they can become more of a partner that we've talked about earlier. And I think we're going to see that continue for the rest of this year. And I think it's good opportunities for Spartronics and other companies in the tier 3. And I think Nicole's going to see, to her point, the benefit of, stable companies in place, ready to go and accept new business.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely see that being the case. And I agree with you from an OEM point of view that right sizing is part of what they're looking at going forward. And as they're looking at how do they secure their supply chain through their EMS supplier. And does that mean more reshoring? Does that mean more regionalization, more localization, shorter supply chains? But I think fundamentally, one of the key things is it definitely means considering the size of the EMS you're working with. And it's very hard if you're a tiny or a small customer to be a partner of one of the tier 1 EMSs, and those tier 1 EMSs make great partners for those huge brands that outsource, $50-100 million a year, or even billions of dollars a year. So yeah, I think there's some correction going on there, and it does bring me to Eric's next question, which Eric can ask or I'll ask, and that's just the situation regarding regionalization and people bringing business back to the US to secure their supply chain. Where are you seeing that, Nicole? Are you seeing people coming to you saying, hey, we've been doing this business in Asia, it's not working out the way we hoped it would. We want to see it back in the US.
So we did think we had some early opportunities there, and I have to say they haven't materialized in the way we thought. I think we see more people going to Mexico, as a kind of a North America proximity play. Obviously, compared to Connecticut, their labor is going to be, and obviously their workforce has grown tremendously in their technical ability down there. So we have seen a couple customers toying with quoting. My own opinion is because those supply chains are already locked in, that would be a 2-year journey to get them to move anyways, because they've got to pick up that supply chain and essentially move it. And we all know lead times are 18 to 24 months out on a full qualification. I think the other challenge we see is many times companies don't have the golden bombs. Those golden bombs end up residing somewhere in Asia, and that's a difficult. So you're really talking about almost a new design or a redesign to get that product to market here in the U.S. from what we've seen.
Mhm.
Yeah, and as Spartronics, we have 3 areas. We're in the United States and Mexico and Vietnam. From a Vietnam standpoint, we're seeing an influx of business coming out of China. Tariffs are not going away. Customers want a different solution. The labor, situation in China is not helping as well. So, we currently have a 60,000 square foot plant that is becoming, we're building a brand new 270,000 square foot plant that'll open in July. And I'm just amazed at the influx of interest we've had in that business. We're actually transferring customers and winning business ahead of opening that plant, which is telling us what's going on in that marketplace. Now, some of the customers that are there, some of their concerns are, transferring freight and the cost of freight, and the time it takes to bring it across the sea. So, a while back, they asked us to mitigate that and have, a near shore solution. And we opened up our site in Mexico, and that's created that solution. And we are seeing quite a bit of growth in that area too, but we're also doing I would say a little bit of both, or we might be building product in Vietnam and transferring it to Mexico to put, weight into it and then transferring it to the United States. Again, thinking outside the box. We saw a lot of reshoring into the United States. We saw a heavy influx of that. Some of the challenges right now are, with increasing labor that we are seeing across the board in the United States. I think people are saying, I got to rethink that a little bit.
Mhm.
And so, now people are kind of say, well, maybe I'll have part of it built, in a low cost country and it finalized in the United States. So we're starting to have those discussions. Unfortunately, our economy as it stands right now and the inflation that we're seeing right now is kind of not doing that reshoring effort too well for us. And I don't know where to comment on that besides that, we have a problem at hand. We just got to deal with it. And I think it's a cyclical problem that we've dealt with in EMS over the years.
Yeah.
I think that labor thing is certainly an issue, and I'll let Eric ask about that. But I just wanted to ask Larry, where are you in Mexico?
Sorry, we're in Tecate. So we're about 45 minutes out of Tijuana, which is a very dense area for labor. So we find ourselves in a very nice, region of the border. And it's actually been a positive move that we decided to be into.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at those labor issues, you're aware that there are, huge pools of talent in Guadalajara, in Tijuana, in Reynosa, and some of those other border towns that has really played well for the Mexican supply chain.
Yeah, it is growing at an incredible rate, and the expansion of not just EMS, but companies are moving quickly into Mexico over the last year. The labor pool is maybe as tough as the United States, and there's a lot of transient labor. So, being in remote areas gives us a little bit more security of retention, but still you have that problem.
Yeah. Let's dig into that a bit, because I mean, Nicole, you referred to it as kind of the know-how too. So I mean, having the manufacturing know-how, just moving it and having bodies is one thing. I think competent people who know how to do the work is the other challenge. And that's why has always been a discussion about what will return to the United States specifically, because a lot of manufacturing over the last 20 years has kind of migrated away in a lot of ways. So I want to kind of attack the labor shortage side in two ways. One is, and first, how are you seeing that? What are the challenges that you're seeing, Nicole, with in the labor market? Are you finding people that properly trained? Do you have to invest more in training for your people these days?
Yeah, so obviously we're facing the same, I would say, kind of turnover that America is facing with this, employees jumping from job to job, for additional wages. And I think there's two things. So I think we've experienced the norm of everyone else, but I'm also seeing something that's emerging that's new here. And Connecticut's a great state. Obviously, we're a high-cost state, but we're highly educated. Extremely fast-paced, and it both serve very well, obviously, in this industry. But I'm starting to see workforce challenges that relate to outrageous compensation packages for the skill sets that don't align. And we've started to see that over the last 90 days to the point, I'm doing a lot of work with workforce boards here with the governor and his workforce. And, what we're going to do is double down on Industry 4.0, and the automation, so we've got to take our labor rates up to be competitive, to retain our employee base. There's obviously a lot of training that goes on in our industry for that. We do work with the state on different training programs. Connecticut is very advantageous for different grants and training funding mechanisms. But clearly we need the engineers and we need the buyers, and but we will look, we are highly automated right now, but we'll look to do additional automation in data and robotics to augment, frankly, the entry-level workforce that's becoming harder and harder to get.
Yeah. Larry, I see you clicking. There we go.
Well, and I agree with Nicole's, their actions, what they're doing are similar to what we're doing. We are, we're a unique company in the sense that if you look at our locations, we're actually in remote places. So our retention, our people are a little bit more stickier. We're not in I would say high transit areas for labor, but what we had to do, we still had people that turned over that, jobs that you wouldn't expect them to take, they took. And so we've done a lot more investment in community involvement. We're heavily sponsoring the community. We're getting our name more recognized in the community as, we're here to stay. We're a stable company. I'm trying to, demonstrate to our future employees that this is going to be here for a long time, and this is where you want to invest your career, because some of these careers that are paying these high wages, these are short-term solutions. They will end. They cannot survive at the rates they're paying in fast food restaurants and other places like that. And then the second part of it is, we actually train them to do a trade. It's a very high touch labor business. They get certified, an IPC certification. So there's longevity to the positions that they take. And, if they're just coming in out of a trade school, or they did not go to college and going in, it's a great trade and a great and clean environment to work in. And it's something that's needed. Now, that being said, the touch labor, area of people is hard to find. And some of our customers have concerns about that. And again, I hate to say it, but that's turning some customers to look at low-cost countries, because they're starting to understand that a large part of their cost of product is in the touch labor, and they're looking for alternate solutions. So, you don't necessarily want to do that, but it is what it is. And it's what the competitive market is bringing on.
Yeah, it's concerning that the labor shortage would potentially stall some of the the regionalization that's occurring, and those things have to be balanced. Nicole, I wanted to dig a little bit into what you were saying about doubling down on automation. Are you finding that the suppliers, the CapEx companies, the software companies have got what you need in terms of automation, in terms of providing stuff that is sufficiently flexible and adaptable that can operate in an EMS environment?
Yeah, I think we've operated a little differently over the last 25 years at least, which is standard equipment, that all the EMS companies that are top tier have, but then we've augmented that with our own demo and beta testing of things like taking inventory towers and linking them virtually together for seamless picking and ERP implementation. So we've homegrown some of those for automation. The good news is when we have a vision on that, most of those software/equipment suppliers can support that. They've either got the open platform to allow us to go in and create our vision, or they go ahead and give us a resource to help. So we've got a mix of both here that's allowed us to really, I think, leapfrog definitely competitors of our size and our capability, and be able to keep our head count at a reasonable place by reducing some of the manual. I did want to touch on one thing that I think is really important in regards to this, not only in equipment and software and workforce, but the businesses that we're in right now are so technologically advanced from all of these aspects. They're clean. They are building the technology of the future, whether it's, for a war fighter or, a medical device that's going to save someone's life. And I think when you take a look at the combination of that with the workforce we need, it's really enticing to those that are emerging out of trade schools, and to get them in to see that they can help program equipment that we're going to bring in to try to automate the factory. They can be not on their augmented reality at home doing their video games, but they can come do it in our shop here. I think there's a really neat way that we and Larry's business and our business can really sell EMS to these generations that are emerging. And that's a long answer to your question of we can bolt it all together, and technology is just going to be tremendous in the future.
Yeah, and it is a long game, isn't it? As you look at recruiting that next generation. But you're absolutely right. It's an attractive and exciting environment to be working in. There are great prospects within that environment, and I think the perception of factory work, if you like, isn't that at the moment. So there's an education process that's required.
Yeah. Let me follow up on the labor side of it too, not from the shortage side, but I did an interview earlier today, and a gentleman, we were talking about the concept of what he called supply chain fatigue, right? Which is just how it's really, this has been a grind that people are going through. And if you think of, your materials department, what these people are having to go through, and constantly you have executives who are having to jump in, and you're on the calls making that. How are your people? I guess is the question. How are your people during this, and are you having to be extra sensitive to these factors? How are you handling the workforces in the current environment? Either of you can jump in.
I can answer. From a Spartronics standpoint, I think it's really our executive management has rolled up their sleeves and got involved, with all our sites to understand what is plaguing them. There's a lot of challenges there, especially with, these meetings that we're setting up and getting the support that each site needs. And I think one of the things that the employees see is that you care too. You're not flowing this back down to the buyer or the expediter of just looking for the part and say, just find it. That's not the solution. So I think we're rolling up our sleeves together. The employees are seeing, the buyers and supply chain leaders are seeing our customers, doing the same thing. We're all working together. And so I think what we've seen out of that is that, yes, there is fatigue, but, people are still going on, in the middle of the night, on Saturdays, on Sundays. I see it, and not that it's healthy at all, and everyone wants to see an end to it, but, at the end of the day, it's what needs to get done. in our business, in an EMS environment, that's just part of the business. It's probably at an extreme, and we're trying to throw more resources at it, but that's, we are a service, and that's what our customer expects us to do, and that's what we do.
Yeah, and I think similar with us, obviously we're smaller with 130 employees here, but very culturally driven, which I would have to say pre-COVID had a lot of weight. I think it's lost a little weight in this because people are so fatigued. But we did things like during COVID, we bought meals for every single employee and their family for 12 weeks. We made an investment so that they wouldn't have to go out to the store. And so we continue to roll out programs like that to show them, it's a big investment, but it's a very small investment to show them how much we care. We have a chapel here. We have every Tuesday a time where people can come just share concerns, and I attend that every week. And it goes back to our management team, as Larry said, just listening, being there, and hearing, hey, what's going well, what's not going well. And I think at the end of the day, and we all know this from the beginning of COVID, we are a resilient country. And that resiliency continues to shine through. I think there will come a time when, the fatigue, I think if this doesn't slow down or we don't really further automate, that we're going to have to deal with some mental health issues like they were dealing with in schools with kids, and so we're watching for that. We're watching that it doesn't force somebody to start looking for another job. And that we see that concern before they even know they have it. But it's a critical part of a management team's job.
Yeah, that fatigue is one step before burnout, isn't it? And that's what we need to be watching out for and supporting people as best we can. And some of those automated solutions and some of those improved partnerships down the supply chain have got the potential to alleviate some of that if the supply chain shortages themselves don't go away, which I don't suspect they will quickly.
Let me just ask, just in respect of our time here today, just looking forward for the next, I used to do prognostication for the industry, and I always said I could go out a quarter or two. Beyond that, it becomes a guess sometimes, right? What's going to happen. So whatever your crystal ball might be, how do you see the evolution of the EMS industry in North America over the next year or so? And Nicole, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, I think the technology curve is just never ending in front of us. So the ability for our businesses to have a nice future is really evident. I think the workforce will continue to be challenging, and businesses that have the liquidity and the workforce strategies, I think will really survive and thrive. I think without those, you could bump along as a decent EMS, but I'm not sure you're going to be too happy because inventory is still going to be king for the next 2 years. You've got to have it. You've got to have the ability to bring it in and pull those levers really quickly. And then, when do we get back to, a normal, trying to turn inventory a couple times a year? I think remains to be seen based on, the OEM capacity of the semiconductor industry and the investment that hopefully our country is going to make in that, here in the US. We're obviously so lagging there. So we are very bullish on our ability really to interview customers that we humbly say if they would like to join us, because we are very selective on our partnerships, and that it's the right complexity, credit, culture mix. So we're very excited about the future.
Excellent.
From the Spartronics point of view, we see two avenues. One is, if the golden screws appear or they even start loosening up, you will see some capacity constraints with some of these EMS companies. A lot of companies are running as lean as possible, to a point of, because they don't have material, and all of a sudden the floodgates open up. You're going to see some, reverse capacity constraints. Now I got the parts. How do I get it out? And I think some of those constraints, again, will be a further, sign to the customer base of, am I important to you? And so I think that will be part of that right sizing approach that our customers take. And then number two, you're going to see a continued consolidation of EMS companies. If an EMS company is run correctly, if they have the right sites and they've got the right customer base, they're an attraction for, an acquisition. So we have to, our customers are cognizant of that. We watch that closely. I think that'll continue for at least 2 to 3 years, especially as active as the EMS market is, and as much as people want to continue to outsource, and people want to outsource, just not domestically but globally, and they want those solutions, and in a very, very, like I said, intimate relationship. So I see that continuing to change.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, I would make a couple of points on top of that. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and it feels like the better EMS companies are the ones that are surviving and thriving. But also a lot of the measures that you two have talked about in terms of what you're developing and what's moving forward in your business makes you even better EMS companies. And I think that bodes well for the industry, and that bodes well for North America. And then, my second comment would be waiting for normal is a fairly fruitless strategy, because I don't think there is any normal. And I think the smart move is to design for a more disruptive market. And I think that's the case for your OEMs in terms of the products. I think it's the case for you in your strategy and your business model, and the way you partner with your customers, and the way you partner with your suppliers. So, I think, and the potential there is huge. If you look at EVs, you look at medical devices, you look at what's going on in the bioscience industry, the huge amount of investment capital that's coming into new products that aren't just apps, they're hardware. That creates a large growth in the market and a large opportunity that's right on your doorstep. So I think there are great opportunities there for the industry to be not just better, but stronger and more able to supply those innovative customers in an innovative way.
Well said, Phil. Well said. Well, we've come to the end, folks. Nicole, Larry, thank you very much for taking the time today to share with us your thoughts and insights on the industry. I know it's much appreciated. Hopefully we can catch up again in the future and get some updates as hopefully we can start putting more of this in our rearview mirror and see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I wish you both continued success and prosperity. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Take care, everybody.
Take care.